welcome to the show, Elisa Stancil Levine. You are a world-class decorative artist and the founder of Stancil Studios, where your work has been featured in leading design magazines everywhere. Your company is an award-winning company. You are the author of the book This or Something Better, but you describe yourself not only as a writer, but also as a maker and a nature lover. And you shared a little secret with me yesterday that you also describe yourself as a little woo-woo. And we're going to go into that as we get into the interview. But how are you, Elisa?
I'm happy. I had a beautiful day, went on a lovely hike, and I'm just really glad to be speaking with you today.
Oh, thank you. So tell us where you're located at present.
Okay, I'm in Northern California. A lot of people might understand it as the wine country. It is, in fact, about an hour and a half northwest of San Francisco. And this is where there were the tremendous fires and firestorm, which was sort of similar to the difficult fires you had in Australia.
Hmm.
And but that was 5 years ago. And we've had continuing threats and fires since then, just as you are facing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a beautiful, idyllic place. You couldn't have wished for anything more until we realized we should be wishing for no fires, right? And good climate and not
Yes.
climate change. But this is where I am. We have property here and horses, and we adjoin thousands of acres of wildlife corridor, and we have 32 miles of hiking trails we can run and hike on, right out our back door.
Yes.
So
Yes.
super lucky.
You have an incredible story. And before we launch into your story, which is so inspiring because you have faced a lot of adversity and you've become this beautiful, powerful woman who has achieved so much. You shared a story with me yesterday about a phone call that you had, seeing as we have a singing voice community here. So I'm going a little off track, but I just remember the story that you shared about that phone call you received from a theatrical group.
Mm, yes. And it's really funny because this property that adjoins us, part of it is a state park, still owned by the state of California, but they could no longer really be running it. They just couldn't seem to afford it. The state had just accepted so much land and made it all into parks, and then they couldn't cope. So this park was going to be closed, thousands of acres adjoining us, and we were working very hard to save it. And I got this phone call from someone unknown who said, we've been looking all over the United States for the perfect place to do an outdoor theater, and we think we've found it, and we think it's at the park next to you. And we were told if we want to try to make this happen and have our theater company there, we should call you. And I said, well, okay, let's get this go on. Let's get this party going. So
Yes.
they came to lunch, and it was a fascinating thing. You may even think this is interesting because they said that they wanted to do Broadway shows. They also wanted to mount new and creative work that hadn't been done before, and that was their vision. And my husband and I had spent a lot of time in Manhattan, and we have, like we said, walked out on some of the best shows. We love
Walked
some
out.
Broadway, but sometimes we leave, right? And so I left Phantom of the Opera, too much singing. Okay, I left. I mean, just it's so crazy. I was like, oh, I'm tired of hearing this. Guys and Dolls, no, gotta go. Just you know. So we love this. We love Miss Saigon and Les Mis,
Beautiful,
certain things.
beautiful. Yes, yes.
But we have left many things. So we were saying, well, we may not be your audience, but we will make it possible for you to have this happen. The very first, just a few months later, they mounted a show for 900 patrons, right?
Yes.
And from that moment till now, they have raised over $600,000 for the park, and they have a multi-million-dollar budget, huge community support, and it's just an amazing thing watching how this group had to manage through COVID really brought a lot of that home to me too. As I
Wow.
said earlier, the whole thing is so ephemeral. What you offer with your voice, in live performance, is this ephemeral moment, right? And
Mm.
it brings so much to the audience. And of course, there's a cycle between the performer and the audience. And when you can't perform in person, it must be very difficult.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. So one question comes to mind here. Have you had to walk out on any of their shows?
I
Oh.
did actually the last time I left at intermission. It was as my husband said, they were working very hard. There was a number of the performers were out with COVID, okay, and
Right.
it was the first show of the season, and you know things happen. So it
Mhm.
wasn't as though they weren't putting their heart into it. But I just I left it halftime intermission,
Mhm.
um, and you know it's like my book. Okay, I'm going to say no. Nothing is for everyone. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yes. Yes,
I could say
exactly.
nature is for everyone, and people would say no, I don't like nature. People are afraid of nature. There are people. So it's the same with whatever a memoir. Some people say, oh, I don't like memoir. Well, then don't worry about
Mhm.
it. Don't read it. If
That's
you,
okay.
yeah, it
Yeah.
does whatever. So
Yeah.
we went actually to a show on 4th of July. As I was mentioning yesterday, they had this performance. It was over 2,000 people there, and they were
Wow.
backed by the symphony, and it was incredible, incredible.
Wow.
It
Wow.
couldn't have been any better. It was the best show I've ever seen them do, and they've been doing this for 10 years at the park now. And these
Wow.
people are all independent performers coming from all up from Manhattan and from LA or from wherever they're on tour for these little stints of maybe 3 to 5 weeks. And they come and then they're gone. It's like, you know, so it's a big deal that they're mounting this. And like I said, we have two people actually living with us right now that are part of this season performance. And that's how our community tries to pitch in. People live with other um,
Yeah.
homeowners and
Yes. So it sounds like it's a big collaborative effort on all parts. What a brilliant thing you've done, not only for the park, but also for the community, that Broadway and that musical theatre community, to have managed to create work for them and a place to put on performances. That's amazing.
yeah, it's all thanks to this touring group, Transcendence Theater Company, who had studied how different theater groups were succeeding, and they went throughout the United States to practice and understand. And I think they stayed and kind of immersed in like maybe 6 to 8 of these successful companies because as you know, many people try, but it doesn't always work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
they were very young at that time, and it's working. They studied, they worked hard,
Yes.
and so I
Yes.
all kudos go to them. I mean, they just asked for some help getting it to be permitted, and that
Mm-hmm.
was my part.
Yes. And you let them sleep in your house as
Yes,
well.
absolutely.
And you've given them lunch. And
Yes,
you've
I
only
have.
walked out at intermission of one show. So they're already doing better than Broadway.
And I never ever told them that. So
Oh no, but
no,
that's okay. You paid for the
yeah,
ticket, which means that you
yes,
did support them. So
yes,
that's amazing. That's all that matters. Now, Lisa, we're going to start talking about you and your story. Now, basically, my underlying theme for the podcast is empowering others to find their voice in life and seeking people who have been silenced in their lives and for them to share their stories and how they have achieved greatness. And I believe you have throughout all the adversity that you've faced. So let's start back to you and your first experience as a child when you were silenced or you felt you didn't have a voice.
yes, I like that, but I want to start even a little bit earlier than that
Okay.
because it was the first time I realized I wanted to have a voice, and I was not even a year and a half old. I was maybe, I don't know, I was too small to have to talk. Okay, maybe a year and 2 months, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm toddling about outside alone. for some reason. And I look down and I see my shoes moving, and they're moving on the pine needles outside in the woods by my house. And I realized all of a sudden, these are my shoes. I'm moving these shoes. This is me. I'm on the planet, basically, if one could think in these words, which I don't know. And I just remember reaching, I see my shoes and I reach up and I just want to greet the world. I'm so happy. And I realize, and I try to say hello, but I realize I can't talk. I have no words. But all of a sudden the trees are moving like this and these birds fly, and I feel completely welcomed. I feel completely acknowledged, and I feel like I belong. And I'm so happy to be on the planet. That's perfect.
Wow.
So this
Wow.
was that's why nature is so key to me, because it's my first imprint, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This was it. Now, then, when you want to talk about needing a voice, we can talk about that and wishing to have a voice that would be heard. From the time I was a year and a half old until I was 5, my grandmother would, if I was staying there with our other cousins, sometimes we'd notice she would get in a mood. And when she got in a mood, it was very scary because I knew she would come for me. And I didn't know why, but she would get more and more, angry. And then she would come and get me, grab me by the arm, swing me up into this wash tub and start scrubbing me.
What?
Make me take my clothes off and scrub me with a scrub brush, and call me a murderer. You're a murderer, she would say under her voice, under her breath, and sometimes just straight out loud. And everybody else scattered as soon as I was grabbed, of course. And then finally she would put me down, and I would run upstairs with my clothes and get redressed and dress myself in the attic and come back down. And it was confounding and scary and horrible. But, there was no one to tell, okay? You don't tell on your dad's mother. Who do you tell? Who's above your dad's mother, and who, is stronger than this woman who's doing this thing to me? I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
God, right? But I didn't
Yes.
know anything. So until I was 5, this could be on order. This could happen, but yet
How
everything
often?
else,
Sorry, what?
probably I'd say, I would have to say 3 to 5 times a summer, maybe more.
Yes.
And it was random. And yet, I tell you, I would dream, and I would wake up at my parents' house, which was very calm and orderly and distant. And I would wake up and I would open my eyes very slowly and try to see if I was magically at my grandmother's, because I would rather be at my grandmother's than at home. At home was so empty, so no connection. So my grandmother's, there was raspberries, there were sunflowers, there was beauty, there was joy, there was, my cousins, I could play. It was great. And she was a very strong and totally reliable person in every other way, except this one thing. So I knew where I stood with her. Everybody knew. If you heard this on the window, everybody would freeze because, you have to come in now, because she was going to tell you have to do, she was a very strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
More so than at my house, my mother was depressed and not connected.
Yes.
So we all wanted to go to grandma's. We loved it. She made these amazing pancakes. She did all these great things. But this being called a murderer just seemed like made no sense, right? And finally, when I was 5, I realized I have to say something. And so we're driving, and she and I are alone. And I think, this is my chance. So I say, Grandma, why do you call me a murderer? I'm just a little child. And she stopped for a second and said, doesn't matter. You're Catholic. And the Catholics killed thousands of people during the Crusades. So it's just like you did it yourself.
What?
I know. And so
Oh my gosh. Were
I
your
mean,
other cousins not Catholic?
no, but my 2
Okay.
brothers were. Okay, so I don't know. She just picked me, and that was the story. I was a girl, and for some reason, I was it.
Mm-hmm.
So I look, and at that time in 1955, 54, 55, there was a pretty new cartoon called Crusader Rabbit. It was a cartoon, why he was called, I don't know. He went around on a
Mm.
horse and looked like he was a crusader, which, kind of weird. But I thought, okay, I don't see how this has anything to do with me. I didn't do anything, and it's not about that cartoon. I just have to give up on trying to figure this out. And this was when I decided that I couldn't tell my father. And, she never scrubbed me again and called me that. So it did work.
Once you confronted her, once you spoke up
Yeah.
and you asked the question, she
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah.
Wow. And okay, so now there's another side to this story as well, whether you want to share it or not, and that is um, the trauma you experienced with your grandfather.
I will share it for this reason. I think a lot of people have had experiences like this, and I find it's sometimes good for others to hear about it. So I'm okay with saying that,
Okay.
yes, my step grandfather married my grandmother when she was about 58 or 60, and he was actually a pedophile. And it wasn't until I was 35 and talking to my girl cousins that we found out together that he had done the same thing to each of us from the time we were very tiny until we were about 2.5. And it's described in the book in a kind of a lyrical way. It's really, it wasn't the same. I don't want to discuss exactly what he did,
No,
but
no, no. And
it,
we don't need to know that. I mean, it's enough that what you've shared with us to get the idea of what happened to
it was
you.
his, yeah, it was his. So what would happen is you'd feel really special because he'd sit on his lap, he'd give you bites of his pancake. And then when my grandmother went to church, which is she's Seventh-day Adventist, then he might take us into this little wood room, the room where all the wood blocks were, and or do these things alone. And so I felt like, I was special. I was on his lap. I got the bites of the pancakes. He had a
Yes,
nickname for me. It was
yes.
he. I was comfort, and the whole experience, everything he did made me feel comforted and known. I felt like this sense of belonging, right? Just like in nature, I'm safe and I'm free. I'm
Mm-hmm.
known.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And
accepted.
and you probably felt heard.
I don't know if I would say heard because I still wasn't talking. So I don't know if I mean, I felt known, which is maybe what you mean by
Yes,
heard.
yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So, but then all of a sudden, when I started to talk, he ditched me for my younger cousin, and he was not available anymore. He was gone with her. I'd see them walking away, as I say in the book, to where we used to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, I'm abandoned now, you know. And then meanwhile, there's the grandmother thing. So um, that all
Wow.
got sealed off. I mean, all of us quietly didn't say anything much about it until many,
Mm-hmm.
many, many years later, which is also pretty common, I think.
Yes, yes, very common. Yes.
And then we shared it with each other, and I put it all. I mean, it is something very vulnerable. It makes a lot of vulnerability occur when you're trying to share this, but certainly when I'm sharing something now at 72 that happened to me when I was 2 to 5, I have distance, from
Yes.
it, and I
Yes.
had the time to really process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not encouraging everybody to run out and write a book if they feel that they've been harmed. I think there's a lot to do with your own path and your spiritual maturity that will help almost anyone with these things that happen that
Mm-hmm.
we have no control.
Yeah.
Right?
So what was the impact on you, like physically, mentally, and emotionally of that time in your life? Did you carry this onto the next phase of your life, into your childhood, into your teens?
Definitely, I said it, I have a couple of images that it reminds me. I felt like I was under a shadow. There was a shadow of shame upon me, right? Maybe I did do something. Maybe I am a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something wrong with me, why I'm abandoned,
Mm-hmm.
why I'm not connected to my real actual parents, this shadow. And so all I could really do to make myself feel free of that, if you stand straight under a noon sun, there's no shadow. So I would always want to try to be in the right place at the right time for the right reason, doing the right thing. Be safe, and I would
Yes.
shine.
Yes.
And this is just, a compensation. It's an unintended result of this. And the secondary aspect is that I began to make, like, what I came to realize was like a little bit of armor. Every time something confirmed that maybe that wasn't quite right, didn't do the right thing, didn't succeed in the right way, it just drew me further and further from people. But thankfully, I had nature. Okay, this is what I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go deeper and deeper into. We lived by a river. I sat by the river. My companionship was the river. I was able to have a few good girlfriends, which was wonderful when I was very little and as I grew up. But um, my nuclear family never really melded. Um, so I decided to go away to high school at a boarding school where I thought, because I was in the advanced groups and all that kind of thing, that I was just too brilliant for my little tiny town.
Yes.
I should go to a better place.
Mm.
And I found this fantastic place at boarding school that there was this famous nun named Sister Mary Carita, and she was protesting war. She was really, really amazing. And she was doing this great art that was called collage and stick printing, and it was very simple. And the first thing I saw of hers was this tissue paper collage of a bird in flight on a white ground, and it said, "I greet the light within you." And I'm like, this is my person, right? This is art. This is
Wow. And
life.
this is a nun.
Yes. And she became famous as a nun, and she was forced out. But in any case, I found this school. I thought, well, it's Catholic, but that's okay. She's a nun, and she's doing this, and they have an art program. Let's go see it. My parents agreed that I could go. So I went, and I loved everything about it. And they accepted me after the testing and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the uniforms and everything. Summer passed, and it was time to start. But when I got there, the whole program had been changed over the summer, and they had canceled the art program. Everything was done, and it was like, as I say in the book, they had this new sister, Mother Superior, and her name was Sister Marie Damien. And she was tiny and beautiful. And she insisted that we would be silent, okay, again, with white gloves on retreat, not speak.
Mm-hmm.
We just have these days.
How
It's
old
going
were
to
you
be
at this stage?
13.
Wow. That's a lot to ask for from a 13-year-old.
And I had made a big deal that I was going to a special school because, it was better for me, and I was no more in the advanced classes. I could have skipped some classes in high school and just gone on, and graduated early. But I just thought I would go this other place for
Mm-hmm.
art and literature. Right, this is where I would go because that's what I wanted to write and paint. But no, they just cut all that out, and I only lasted one semester. And in that semester, I gained 30 pounds. I was just morose.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about, I don't know, 6 hours by bus away from my home. And my parents filed for a divorce. The river had a dam proposed. I mean, everything happened in this 6 months. It could have possibly happened to change everything. And that was a huge pivotal point in my life. Thinking that, it was out of the frying pan into the fire and then back home into not even an ember. There was nothing.
Wow. Wow. So what did you do next?
Well, I looked around my school. I tried to start a running program because I was a big runner at that time and a hiker. And this was, way back in 1964. There was no Title IX in America. That means girls get to do sports too. The rules it's ridiculous. You could hold the basketball for 5 seconds.
A girl.
Otherwise, yeah, because it would be too much for you if you, controlled the ball for very long. You
Oh
had
my
to
gosh.
just insane. I
Are
mean,
you
can't even
for
tell you.
really? Is this?
Yes,
Oh my
that was
gosh. I've
that
never
was the
heard of
case.
that.
Oh no, it's horrible, horrible. Just so I tried to start. The first thought was, okay, I've gained weight. People thought I went away and had a baby. Okay, I was mortified, but there was nothing I could say because I could see that they weren't going to believe me. They just You wouldn't believe me. The high school kids. And they were viciously annoyed that I had gone and then happy that I came back, and shame, right? So I decided, okay, I'm just going to start a running club, and we'll have, so I went to the principal and asked to do this. And he said, well, let me think about it for a week. I came back the next week and he said, I'm so glad to tell you we have thought of your idea of starting a running team. And there were 3 other schools sort of nearby that had running teams in high school for girls. And I had girls that had good times that would have run with me. He said, well, we thought about it. And we know why you really want to be out there. So we're going to give you girls your own little clipboards, your own little uniforms, and your own little stopwatches. And you can keep the boys' times.
No, no.
So again, okay, I get a vision. I try to make it happen. It's not happening. So I'm like, oh my God. So these situations where something like this happens, I just mentally try to turn this person into dust. They cease to exist. They are not part of my reality. That's it. They're done. So I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to see what shall I do. And by the second year that I'm back in my high school, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, maybe I just need a boyfriend. It's very boring here. There was only like 3,000 people in my town, and it was a mountain town, very limited. So I thought, well, if I had a boyfriend, so I found a boyfriend that was, and then I thought, well, and then, he wanted to have sex eventually, and I was like,
Yes.
I was not even that person. Okay. Who knows what was happening from my super, super past, but it wasn't time for that in my world. But
Yes.
after much pressure, I decided, well, just do it this one time, he thinks it's very important. It means nothing to me, but even halfway, I didn't know what halfway might be. I knew nothing. So I'm like,
Of course.
oh, well, just do that. But then once I had done that, then I had sinned. So now I'm sinning, and don't know what to say or do about it. I can't turn the clock back because he thinks that I'm available for that. I've handed out all my cards. I have no cards in my
Yes.
hand, right?
Yes. Yes. You've given him all your power,
Yes. So,
essentially. Yes.
and I mean, I'm 16, he's 17, or maybe, yeah, at most. So I'm thinking, well, it's a sin. So I guess the best thing for me to do, since I really don't want to finish this high school, I don't care about anything else, I'll just get married. We'll get pregnant. I'll get married and I'll be free. This is like the most
Okay.
ridiculous. When you think about it,
Well, it's not
I'm,
really. It's not really because a lot of women in different cultures, and I know in mine, in an Italian family with a strict upbringing, a lot of
yes,
us did get married to get away from our families. So
yes.
it's not ridiculous. Anyway, continue with your story.
The idea to be free as a married 16-year-old is pretty hilarious. Anyway, that baby my parents eventually let me marry. I had that baby, but he died at birth. And that was another crushing time where I really tried to understand what was happening, but I had no one to really share how deeply I felt that maybe I had killed this baby. Maybe I secretly had murdered him by loving him too much. What else could I have done? What did I do? I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Which is normal. I think it's normal for a mother who loses a baby, no matter what your age, that you didn't keep your promise, because you promised this baby life, right?
Yes, yes. But I mean, that's women who experience miscarriage or stillbirths, they go through a tremendous loss
Yes.
and they go through a grieving process. And at 16, how do you even fathom that? How do you even know or label those emotions? And how do
Yeah.
you overcome that?
Yeah. It's in the book. I really I found finally a key in that I had this deep anger, and the anger it wasn't directed at anything, but it just was this deep anger that had to come out. And that's when I did this sort of a exercise of beating this chair against this very strong wooden wall. And nothing bad happened to the chair or the wall, believe it or not. But it took all this anger out. And then that's when I just realized that, I just had to let it be what it was.
Yes, and
Uh,
anger is part of the grieving process. When you read the 5 steps
yes,
of processing grief, anger
yes,
is one of those steps.
yeah. So, I could see sitting there after this crying scene with, beating the wall and everything, and then a few days later, I tried to act like everything was as if everything was fine, and tried to
Mm,
be like this ideal wife. Now, remember, I'm like 17 and a half, and I'm trying to make these beautiful little meals for my husband, who's making $1.50 an hour at a gas station. You know, so the big question would
clearly, you
be,
didn't marry for money.
no. He was 17, 18 by now. So yeah, like I just had to start laughing at myself because I was trying to decide, should I do vanilla instant pudding or chocolate instant pudding for my
Oh,
husband when he gets home? I'm like, oh yeah, this is freedom. This is the freedom that you wanted. Look where you are. What is happening?
mm-hmm,
What is happening? And
mm-hmm.
I just started to like really try to look at what I was doing with my life. But nonetheless, I really felt I had to try to finish this baby thing because it was this emptiness. And I prayed and prayed, and I got pregnant again, and that baby survived. And that was beautiful.
Oh,
Um, so that became the first person that I ever really had love and trust with, my
mm-hmm.
son.
Yes, yes. And then you
It
went
wasn't
to
a,
college after that, after having the
Well, I was only
baby?
16. I never finished high school, but when I was pregnant with my second child, I took computer classes at a business college, and I got a degree. It was a 9-month course, but I was already pregnant when I started it, and so I challenged a bunch of the classes, and I got out in 3 months with an A rating as a computer
Mm-hmm,
input person,
mm-hmm.
and I got a job doing that. But then I went to community college, and I lived with my mother after I divorced my first husband. I lived with my mother for um, a 9 months, and I took 2 semesters of college. I mean, 2 years of college in one year by challenging and taking 25 units a semester,
Oh
which I
my,
don't know if you know. Yeah. So
that's a lot. You would have been working night and day on that.
yes, yes. Well, I also I made a bunch of units up by having what do you call them? Wasn't challenging the classes, but they're independent study. So I just decided I made a 4-unit course for myself called this literary magazine, and then I got other people to give me contributions, and then I did put out the literary magazine and distributed it at the college, and that was 4 units, and I got an A. I gave myself an A. I got an A for
Yes,
that.
yes, yes, yes,
So,
yes,
just
yes.
trying to make things happen like I needed them to happen. Hurry up. So when I finished that 2 years of school in one year, I was exhausted, and I had hardly seen my son, as you can imagine. He
Mm.
was at school from 8 in the morning until 6 p.m. I worked at a restaurant from 4 to 10 or something. My mother picked him up from school and gave him dinner and put him to bed. I didn't, hardly saw my son. My mother was wonderful about doing this, very strongly believes in higher education, and eventually got her own PhD. But at that time, you know, um, I was just so busy trying to make my way. I really suddenly realized I don't even know my son. He's going to go into, um, he, he'll be in kindergarten soon, and I won't have spent any time with him. So
Mm.
oddly, and I'm sure my mother didn't feel good about this, rather than running out and getting a job or looking for a job, I decided to go and live on this 2,000 acres in this little house that was $40 a month. And I went on welfare. And I decided I'm going to spend a year with my son, maybe a year and a half. I'm going to let myself be supported this way, and I'm going to pay this all back someday. This is going to be me spending the time immersing myself in
Yes.
mothering and loving my son and knowing him. And once that's done, he'll be in school. I'll be working away hard as I can. I'm obviously a hard worker, not a problem.
Yeah,
Right?
and entrepreneurial by the sounds
Yeah,
too.
right.
Yes.
Yes, yes. So I did that, and I found out it's really not pleasant to live on this little tiny bit of money that welfare will give you. It's just really not okay at all. I did love this place that we lived, and it was amazing, and it's well described in the book. And it was most people's favorite part of the whole book because it's a beautiful time, and we were in the country, in the way, in nature, beautiful. And that gave me this interlude from all of this rush and hell and difficulty trying to the enterprise of having a life to just being still. And then
Mm,
from being still,
mm,
realizing I need now to be that person. I'm going to be that strong person. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to support my son, and I'm going to face my fears. And
mhm.
so I went to the town, the biggest city near me, and I got this little cottage in the backyard of a bigger house that was getting remodeled. And that's how I began to start my business with the remodeling. It's just
Yes,
all through intuition and getting lucky who I met. And that's where all the changes that were good for me came from intuition, feeling, letting the force of my own feeling and hope push me to the next open door or even crack of a window, right? To
mhm,
make my way.
mhm.
Now, of course, here's my parents all the while. Like, oh my God, she's going from pillar to post. She will never find her way. And my father was an entrepreneur and very successful. My mother was very, very learned and um, very big community support, volunteer,
Yes,
worked very hard to make a difference. So for them, it was just this, kind of um, I guess, a story of failure, really,
yes, yes. Well, you
watch me
weren't
go through all that.
living, you weren't living your life in what they
Yeah,
perceived or believed was the right way, or you weren't taking the
yeah,
what would be the usual path that someone would take. You were stepping outside of what was comfortable and normal in inverted
yeah,
commas for
right,
them.
right. And that idea was always that I was too much. My mother thought I was just simply too much. Everything I did was too much.
Sorry for laughing. I can relate to some of this. I'm going, yeah, I'm a bit too much for my family too.
Yeah. Finally, they came to decide that I was a late bloomer, and they were happy for my success. Well, it's great. I'm really glad. And um, certainly in the book also really talks about how you make peace with these different things and these people and elements in your life where you had no connection, and how you finally find a way to get a connection, which I was lucky enough to do with my mother
Mm,
and my father.
mm, mm.
you know and
And yeah, and so you went on to restore for the next 6 years, I believe. You went
yeah,
on to restore 16 craftsman houses. We call them craftsmen, where you call them
yeah,
craftsmen.
yes,
And if you watch House Hunters, oh, it's a craftsman. You know,
yes,
it's like this big deal that it's a craftsman. Now, I have no idea why it's a big deal, but that's okay. And you had this brilliant career. Uh, so you went into this career path, and listening to your story, you've overcome so much to get to where you're at. Where do you think this inner strength comes from? I mean, it's incredible, and I think I would love to hear what you believe. Was it something that was in there within you already, or is it something that you build up, you become more resilient as you face and overcome adversity? Where's that strength come from to do this?
well, I have one of my cousins who was with this whole experience with my grandparents. She and I were talking today, and we're very similar with this. We just have this, our brain just likes to figure stuff out. So if it's not working here, then if even if there's two things that don't work, maybe if you put these two bad things together, it will work. Maybe this, or maybe that, or maybe this. We will not stop. We just like to, I call it shaking the box. You look at something and it's not quite what you want, and you want to shake the box. What's in there? Tell me what to do now. Let me get to the right place at the right time for the right reason. Hurry up.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And she's similar in that. And she also did a lot of remodeling, it turns out. Interesting, because it's like we're just,
Wow, kindred spirits.
yeah, we're kinetically, we're gifted physically, so we're very, very strong, and we like to make transformation. I mean, just that's my wheelhouse, transformation.
Hmm.
Let me transform something, and then I'll go on and transform something else.
Okay, so transform something that's not quite good or perfect and transform it into perfect.
Yes,
So
or
make a right
recognize.
out of a wrong.
Yes, yes,
Ah,
yes, exactly. And what
ah,
often I always ask, and I think it's a simple question: what is wanted? All right. Okay, you could be tasting your pie filling and it doesn't taste quite right. You can just sit there all day and say it doesn't taste right, it doesn't taste right. That doesn't tell you anything. What does it want? Could be just some little
yeah,
tiny thing that you
yeah.
use to make it sing, right? And so it's this whole idea of what is wanted. And so I think I'd credit all this kind of thinking to nature and
Mm-hmm.
watching how nature will bend and move, and things happen, like a tiny lizard will come up and look at me, and I'll just see it, and then I'll just take a little tiny bit of water and put it in the cap of my water bottle. And this happened in Arches, which is it's very hot there. So I put this little bit of water out, and the lizard comes over and starts drinking out of the little bowl of water, right? And then you
Yes.
just look and say, what is wanted? Oh, I love this lizard. It's coming to me for something while I'm drinking water. Hey, maybe it wants water. Yes, it does. Yay. You know?
So it sounds like you're a problem solver also, almost.
Yes. I like that. I think I like to think of it more as being an intuitive, and more like um, it ends up looking like I'm thinking that I know what to do all the time, but it's not true at all. You just have to be curious and listen, and then respond. And then,
Agree. Yes. So when you're out in nature, what is it that you do usually? Like if you decide, okay, today you live in this amazing part of the world, I'm just going to go out there into nature. Do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you just sit there in stillness? What is it that you do?
well, it depends. I actually am writing this article right now for a magazine in the Pacific Northwest about 5 things you can gain from nature outdoors. They asked me to write it, and I'm thinking, okay, I went out today and I knew I was writing this, and I have the 5 things in my mind, but I see this really even older than me, old people out, probably about 3 miles out on a trail with their sticks, and I said, this is what I'm writing. And what do you have to say about these 5 things? And they started right away. Well, you can get your circulation, it's all this sort of medical thing. And then I find out that the guy that's telling me all these points is 95 and he's out there hiking. Okay. So, first of all, um, when I go out, I try not to know what I'm doing because I'll get bored. I've been on this mountain for 17, 18, 19 years now. So I know all these trails. And I
Yes.
know I have a bunch of favorite trees and all kinds of fun little things that I do. But if in fact I'm out there to be in nature, I would like to be bringing the idea of wonder and essence with me and receiving it. And one of the 5 things that I was bringing up in this article is that when you have any questions, you can go out and you can ask for signs. And I would suggest you're not really getting answers, you're getting ideas. So if I'm
Yes.
having a professional issue or a family issue, and I know I can see I could use some guidance, I can say I'm looking for signs, and I go out, and you may see a leaf that is 2 different colors, and you realize that there's 2 sides to everything, and you're only looking at one side, so you should be looking at both sides. And now this is a new idea, and you'll keep walking and thinking about that, and it
Mm-hmm.
will open you up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do meditate sometimes, and I suggest that as well, is that you can double up. You can meditate, do a walking meditation. And so if you're a person who likes to succeed and check up a lot of boxes, you're going to be hiking and meditating. Yippee, 2 things at once. Good. Sometimes I need that. Other times, if I'm feeling heartsick for whatever reason, it could be political, socioeconomic.
Yes. And there's a lot to be heartsick about there at the moment.
Yes. If I feel heartsick, I will put my chest against a tree. And the idea behind that, I had to write this out today. Why do I believe in this so much? It's really, I know that the tree has been a silent witness, without judgment for all of these, for hundreds of years or some maybe decades, and it's present. And if I put my heart against it and allow it to feel my heartbeat, we are both sort of resonating in this moment. I'm giving respect to this tree and what it stands for, and it may give me something. And of course, as a woo-woo person, I think it is giving me something, and it
Yes.
makes me happy. So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's how that goes. So today it was supposed to be thinking about what I was going to write about, but then I met this old guy, and I loved that. And I saw some pears that were almost blooming in this ancient orchard. Stuff was happening that was totally fulfilling and just piles on the gratitude of being on the planet.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's what I do out
And
there.
and also too, just going back to your career, when you founded Stancil Studios, and this was an award-winning nationwide company, and you were working with the houses of billionaires, like massive projects. Your colors and designs were featured in every major American design magazine. You had this huge career. Did you still find time to go out in nature? And how much did nature influence your business ideas or your creativity?
All the time. I would take pictures and send them when somebody was saying they wanted something like a certain green or something. I would just take moss pictures and leaf pictures and all that and send that to them and see what they thought. And in the ideas of how to combine warm and cool, which of course is one of the things that, let's just say you're in Italy and you see a wonderful buttery house, but it has this weird stony gray trim, right?
Yes.
You're thinking in terms of using this, but this is warm and cool, and this makes a whole. It makes people feel resonant and safe and, grounded. But there's happiness and there's strength, right? Warm and cool, or heart and soul. These are the things that I try to impart with the way I layer color, etc., or combine color. And so all of these things that I ever saw, all through my little tiny childhood up and on to now, has to do, I'm just looking, I'm witnessing, and I have this intense visual memory just because that's just the way I am.
Hmm.
So the way that even remodeling houses and seeing how things are degraded and what makes them look old, when it's time for me to emulate something that's aged and maybe even degraded, I know exactly what it looks like because I had to fix that when I was buying houses and restoring them and making them look fresh. So it's really, really fascinating how I use nature. And yes, I've always lived in a place where I could go on hikes and walks. Even if I was in a New Jersey suburb visiting my long-term boyfriend, I found a nature preserve just, I think it was like 3 blocks away.
Hmm.
And he knew that whenever I'm in nature, I would be able to see whatever I wanted to see. And we were out there one day, and he said, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought maybe when we were out here, we would see some deer. And we knew there were deer in the area. And I said, you want to see deer? And he said, yeah, I think you should bring me some deer. And I said, okay, this is what you have to do. Go over to that tree and put your heart against the tree and wait. So he did it, and a
Yeah.
herd of deer went running by. Okay, I'm not kidding. Instantly, just
Oh my gosh.
okay. And we were out in Sedona. Okay, we were on a vacation. We were in Sedona, which is a beautiful, Arizona, I don't know, red rocks. And there's so many red rocks, sometimes you can get lost. And so all of a sudden he finally admits, I said, I think we might be lost because we're supposed to be walking from these cairns to cairns, but there's cairns everywhere. How do you know which, it all looks the same.
Hmm.
He said, he said, I have to admit, I don't quite know which way to go. I said, well, okay, then we'll just have to do this. Take your hand and hold it up like this and wait for a butterfly. And he says, well, why? I said, a butterfly will come and she'll show us where to go.
Oh
And
my
he's like,
gosh.
I know. I told you I'm woo woo. So he
Oh,
goes,
that's okay.
So we do, and this butterfly came and flew around 3 times and then went that way. We went that way, and it was the right way, and we came out.
That
So
is that is very woo-woo, but you found your way out. So
yeah, we use it. We
yeah.
use it. So, yeah,
So it sounds like to me, through nature, you tapped into your intuition as well. So you
yeah.
must believe you do you believe that your intuition is smarter than your brain?
Yeah, I don't know much about what is the brain. To me, this is me. It's like a circle from the top of my head down to my waist. This is me and my thinking and my feeling, and my brain is all one. And I think many people in the music industry and in the voice world will understand the idea of synesthesia. Definitely, I'm a synesthete. In other words, I have no boundary between some of my senses. So but mostly mine is
Yes.
kinetic.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's texture and feeling. And that's where food, music, sound, taste, um, color, all these things are all, to me, kinetic. They're a feeling, a,
Hmm.
a sensual feeling. So I'm just a big ball of feelings, basically.
Yes,
So,
yes.
I don't
I
know,
have
my
a
brain.
student who's like that.
Yeah, and some
Yeah.
people see colors. I mean, my granddaughter's a synesthete, and she sees certain letters are a certain color and all that kind of thing. I don't have that type, but yeah. And what happens when you're that way is because you're born that way, you think that everybody has that.
Mm.
So when trying to explain or describe stuff, like I'll say to people, that's a very fragile pink, and they're like, "Oh, it is fragile," or that's an innocent blue. Oh, it is innocent, and it's just. I mean, I'm sitting there, you can just see it looking at it right now. It's trying to tell you that, right? But it's talking to me, and I can
Yes.
translate, and
Yes.
that's skill.
Yes. So you had this brilliant career then with Stancil, with this business with
Mhm.
Stancil Studios. Talk about some of the houses. What was the most brilliant house or the most rewarding makeover you've ever done?
Well, each building and job is very different. I would have to say, part of it is the quirkiness of these different clients and the things that they decide that they must have. A building was being built and it was all brand new and it was 55,000 square feet. I don't know. I don't think you use square feet where you are. But I don't
No,
know how
we're
to.
meters, but that's okay. That's
Yeah,
okay.
big. Okay, big.
Big.
And it was this building was being built with this really amazing and very rare wood inside, and it had mahogany windows and pine logs outside, and so it was like this timbery kind of westerny feeling. Wow, and huge. And he wanted all of these windows inside that were mahogany, solid mahogany, which is perfectly beautiful, to
Yes.
match all of this beautiful, very expensive wood that he had used throughout the rest of the house, all panelized. There's no paint; it's just all wood. So our
Oh,
job as artisans was to create the grain to make it look exactly the same. All of the windows, which there are 365 French windows, had to be painted by a regular painter to this base color, ruin the mahogany basically,
yes, I was
and
going to say.
yes, and then paint it to match this other wood. And I tried to convince him, I said, many people would feel that this is perhaps a mistake
Hmm.
because you have a beautiful built, solid mahogany window, which is being its own true self.
Hmm.
And there is nothing to not like about that. And yet you're wanting me to paint it to this lesser grade, to match. I mean, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, this is, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost for him.
Yes.
And because a ton of us had to fly up there and live while we're doing this work, and that's to pay for all this travel and housing as well. This is our thing, as we fly wherever the job is, and it's not cheap.
Hmm.
But truly, he just simply truly had to have that, and we succeeded amazingly. It came out beautiful, and that was good. But there's all just facing his, working on his view of what must be to make him feel complete, right? So we did that. Now there's other jobs where it would be, it was a 72 room apartment, a 3-story set of apartments on Park Avenue that was the Rockefeller's apartment. And now there was 39 rooms that I would be working on that was on Park Avenue and had wraparound patios and everything on, I don't remember what floor that was, of the 22nd or something. So it was 2 stories of this incredible place. And these rooms were done over into this extremely flawless Georgian architecture and just truly beautiful. And I
Yes.
loved working on this place and all these different rooms. And there was rooms that had been 17. We borrowed a piece of a 17th century panelized room, boiserie, and then we emulated that, having that right in the room to copy from to make this room match. Just all these different things that we did there were incredible. But then when that time passed and that was all done, it was photographed, it was in every kind of magazine, it was amazing. The clients eventually went bankrupt and everything that they had was sold through Sotheby's. And I realized that this one desk that was selling for $6 million, I had stood on to because it was too heavy to
You were
move.
standing on it to paint or do whatever.
Painting around because the women they had a room that they didn't want to have to take everything out of because and they needed it to be that she wasn't happy with the color someone else had done long before. And I said, well, she said, is there anything you can do? I just have to fix this. I said, well, yeah, I can fix it, but you can't come in the room because I don't want you to see what we're going to have to do to just don't come in the room. It will be done in a day. But if you just don't come in.
Yes, leave us alone to do our thing.
We did it. And I mean, I was very happy with it. But I mean, later I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that was a George the whatever desk, right? Rare as can be. And, I've had jobs where I'm doing in the middle of a desert. It's this French chateau and they're making it look like a French chateau. And I'm there to do it. And we have worked the whole building completely to age it and make it. I mean, it's thousands of square feet everywhere and 2 and 3 story big, great rooms and that kind of thing. And the client came and she said, I just feel so good when you're here. I just don't know. Could you just stay and do another coat on everything?
What?
And this is a place that, it was like it was just an idea that she had. And this idea was based on the company that she used to have when she wanted to have a French chateau. But now she was done with that company and they had never had this French chateau, but now they're going to have it in this new place, which is a desert. And they decided to also make a moat. I mean, this is a desert, okay?
Make a moat in the desert.
Yeah.
Do they not know what a moat is for? Have they not watched any movies?
Well, they never hardly ever use that house. They're just a really interesting couple that were from Nebraska.
Yeah.
A little tiny town of 300 that he invented this amazing thing that was for surgery, a microsurgery thing that took off worldwide, and they just had this unreasonable amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then they thought, well, maybe they'd do this because they always thought that would be nice. So now they had it, and they just that's what they had. I mean, her dressing room was as big as many people's home.
Oh my gosh, I would love a dressing room like that. And I tell you, I would fill it with mostly shoes.
She wore the same, I don't know, probably weren't the same jeans, but I only saw her in jeans and Levi shirts. And they had horses.
So what did she put in the room?
I don't know.
That one pair of jeans.
Inside of all the closets, I showed her this, that we could do this combed pattern that looked like gingham. It was like a cream color, and then you put a light green, and then that dries, and then you put a blue like this, so it looks like a blue and green check. It's combed.
Yes.
And done. And I thought, well, we'd do it on these huge shoe cabinets, so it would look pretty, and she would like it because her last name happened to be Green. So she sees that, and she goes, okay, I love that. Do that in all the cabinets. Inside all the cabinets in this whole, it took us, I don't even know how long, weeks. And you know,
Wow.
so it was.
Wow. That's
But I mean,
incredible.
I can't really. I mean, other times I have things on my website under stancilstudios.com. You'll see um, really delicious color. I mean, people would allow me to do this incredibly rich salmon rose kind of color
Yes.
or red. I would start with the red panelized room. I'd start with a watermelon color and layer transparent red over transparent red over transparent red until you built this color that you just couldn't live without.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. We have to have everyone go and check out the website then,
Yeah.
stancilstudios.com. Oh, so all these adversities that you've been through, and there's been others that we talked about yesterday. There was another
Mhm.
one that occurred to you at age 27, which we don't need to share. I think people get the idea you've been through a lot, but
Yeah.
you've also achieved a lot, and this beautiful relationship that you've had with nature, and you've trusted nature from the time that you were that little 1.5-year old in the shoes,
Yeah.
and you just found your place where you belonged, and you've had this incredible trust where you've trusted nature to help you with ideas, to give you direction. But you've also said that even though you had this beautiful trust and this beautiful relationship with nature, it is not like that with human nature. How is your relationship with human nature now?
It's on the mend. My relationships with humans has been, I was the fire itself that we had here 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, made me realize that I had a long way to go with human nature, that I had never really trusted it or investigated it. I never looked for the wonder, you know, or the beauty in others. It was mostly transactional. I have people I feel good about and I like, and there's people that I want to make happy. And it was especially comfortable if I would zoom into your project and do what I promised and make you happier than you could ever thought you could be, even clap your hands in joy or even cry, and then I would leave and I'm done,
Right,
done.
right,
And
right.
this
So there was a
leaving,
use by date, an
yes,
expiry date.
totally transactional. There was connection during the collaborative process, and then out.
Hmm.
And I have some friends now that are former clients, and they're beautiful, and there's beautiful friendship, and they're nationwide, and that's wonderful. And I feel really lucky, mostly women. And the fire made me realize when I ran down the mountain without thinking to reach out to my neighbors that there was something very wrong here. If I am so, spiritual, right? What about people? Okay.
Yes,
And
yes.
there's something about turning into your later years that make you realize, I don't want to be done, but what should I put my focus on? Right. And I did this, I did that. What shall I focus on then? And this is like the biggest scary thing for me to be vulnerable to others,
Hmm.
to let them see who I am and to be curious
Hmm.
and to let them show me who they are. And I mean, the first step, this book and having it out there is great in a way, but again, it's transactional because I'm showing people my part. But am I going to be that person that opens to what is your part, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I've given myself 20 years to get good at that.
Yes, only
It's going to take a
20.
while.
Only 20. Well, yes, I mean, your story is incredible. And what lessons have you learnt throughout your life, and the journey you've been on?
I have a great suggestion for people that came from a long ago book. And it's really interesting. When you have fear, it's really common to think that, and you're looking in your future and you're fearing what this next step will be. You feel like everything when you step into the future, it's going to be filled with this fear that you're seeing. But no, I just want you to try this practice. Imagine a threshold and imagine that you're looking into this room of the unknown and
Mm-hmm.
realize that what's hanging between you and this room is this little gossamer veil of fear. But when
Ah.
you're looking through that gossamer veil, you think that's all the room is full of it. But if you make that step from where you are today to where you're going, to where you're going, you will be in the now. You will no longer be thinking about the future. You will be in the future, and the future will be known, and it will not be full of fear. It will be just this other room. Tomorrow is another room, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is another day. This moment, this step that you take, like you accept a job or you have this challenge or you feel like you're not trained properly and you have no proper training,
Mm-hmm.
this fear will come over you. But really, what people are wanting is what you have to give, not where you went to school, right?
Yes. Yes.
What you have to contribute. So when you feel fear, just let yourself step through it. Be loving to yourself, but let yourself step through it.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel that you've healed from all your past trauma, or do you feel that you're still a work in progress? Other than not trusting people or having
It's
that
a pretty
issue
big job.
with
Um,
human nature, but do you feel that you've healed in other ways? Like you don't feel that shame anymore that you felt as a younger child. You don't have that anger that you had.
yeah, I don't have near as much of any of that. And the shadow aspect of, things that are unresolved is much smaller. But there will be triggers. I mean, I think for
Mm-hmm.
everyone, things don't
Yes.
fully go away. So there will be triggers. And, I will have tendency to suppress my feelings using, long, long hikes sometimes, or 3 glasses of wine sometimes, things, you know, and I will, if I see myself doing it and realize I'm going in that place, I'll go there for a little while and then I'll come back around. You know, I think I'm pretty forgiving of myself and all of the past.
Well, obviously you forgave your mother because
Oh yeah,
you said that as that child you didn't want to be in the home, you wanted to be with your grandmother. And then you went back to your mum when you had your young son. So
yeah.
obviously you have forgiveness there. In terms of the positives, because I believe everything happens for a reason to us,
Mhm. Yeah.
and we're meant to learn lessons through those. What are some of the beautiful qualities that you've discovered about yourself as a result of what's happened to you? So let's not look at the negatives, and
Right.
I don't believe that you've ever thought of yourself as a victim. But what are some of the beautiful qualities and the strengths that you've discovered about yourself?
Well, if you think of it, I like durability. I think durability and count on ability is just such a cool thing. And I can immediately, if I say durability, I see a rock, right?
Yeah.
I really, I like the fact that I am a person first. So I always thought of myself as a person first who happens to be a girl. I don't need to be limited by the fact that I happen to be a girl. I'm a person. I have no limitations, right? And so that really, I was really strongly feeling that I could defend myself and support myself, and in the end make a difference in my community, in my
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And so, what are you up to next? You've achieved so much already. Do you have any other little projects you're working on?
One of the things I'm doing right now that I love is I cook for 200 meals. I cook the main course at a, it's on Wednesdays. I have 4 hours and I'm with two other chefs, but they give me my own project and I get to do everything. And it's like a giant in the night kitchen, if you know Maurice Sendak's book, but it's like, imagine the pots are so huge, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. So I do that. That's a thrill. And I know that food is going to people that really will appreciate it. And so that makes me
So,
really
it's for
happy.
people in need.
Yes.
Right.
And the way that it's distributed, they come there and they can get as many meals as they want. They are preset into these to-go containers. So they get this meal. We give up, I think, 200, 160 breakfasts and 160 lunches, which are also dinners. And they can pick them up. And there's no explanation required. You simply come and you take what you want. And we get all this food from the community and from all the stores that have overage, right? And then we have great donations, so then we can buy what else is needed to make these amazing meals that are so creative and fun and beautiful. So that's fun. That's just a little passion project. I'm writing a new book. It's temporarily called Notes from the Studio. And in fact, I'll be writing it in this little studio that's down in my meadow as soon as the theater people are done using it. But there, it's really a wry, kind of amusing, but also very lessons learned kind of thing about my work and lessons of life. And that's calling to me. I'll be writing that this winter. We have a new grandson. That's really fun.
Oh, beautiful. How old?
He's 2 now, and it's just a really beautiful time. And
Oh,
my 2 granddaughters are 20, almost 28 and 25. And
wow.
my son, took over the company, and so he's running the company and owns all that now.
And is he doing a good job?
He's doing a very good job in a very different.
Yay!
He's running it according to him, which is ideal. And a family business, there's issues, in that
Always.
the entrepreneur, the founder, is pushing like a seed through the soil, right? You're pushing. I'm very pushy. He is very reassuring, and everyone is loving having him run the company. I can tell you right now. So it's working out fine.
Well, you probably had to be that way as a woman. If you had have been agreeable as a woman and not stood firm and planted
Yeah.
your feet into the ground,
Yes,
you wouldn't have
exactly.
been successful.
It was hard. In the 70s, there were not very many women in the business at all.
Mm.
So, you're showing up like a woman on a boat or something. Like, what are you doing here? Well,
Yes,
not here
exactly.
to harm you. I'm going to make something nice. I'll
Yes.
bring you cookies. And my son said when he first started, he said, I'm just not going to bring all these guys cookies. I'm not going to be able to do that. So you can do it however you can, but it worked for me.
Yes, yes. So what would you say to other women? There's two categories here and they may overlap. So what would you say to a woman who's in a male orientated industry, like so many of our performers? I've always had to work with male musicians, and it was I faced misogyny there in that as a woman in the entertainment business. What would you say to a woman going into that kind of male oriented industry?
I have a secret technique that works pretty dang good.
Oh, let us in.
Well, first of all, I know that men are scared of us, just saying. So that's too bad, but there's that you can kind of make that work in a way. When I have a very strong client or a very, very bullish contractor person, and they say that it has to be X, Y, or Z, I usually take my hand and I touch their forearm and I go, yes. First thing I say, I never say no. I always say yes. And so they'll say, I don't want this, I don't want that, this can't be, and you have to do this. And I go, yes, that sounds great. Yes, we will do it like you say. Yes. And the other thing is, we're going to start, right here, right now. Right. So just say yes 3 times and then get your way. They
Yes.
will,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
like it's like a sidewinding snake that comes in and then bites, and they give in because they're so relieved
Mm.
that you didn't say no,
Mm-hmm.
say yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And
I've
you use
also learnt that you have to present the idea and then allow them to think that it was their idea and then they're all good.
that works sometimes, but I'm not very. I'm a person who gives everything away by my. I
Mm.
have. I'm not. I don't have a poker face. So if
Oh.
I think I'm going to get my way, if I'm too clever by half, it's evident, and then they get all upset,
Mm.
because I'm like sitting there rubbing my hands
Yes.
together on the sideline. So if you can do it without that, yay.
Mm-hmm.
But as also using voice, my son always says, I use the snake charming voice. And when I use the snake charming voice, then people want to do what I think could be a really good idea.
Wow,
And
I
so
like that voice. That is very calming, that voice. It makes me want to agree. And what
yeah.
about, okay, the second question for women
Mm.
specifically? Well, no, this doesn't have to be only for women, but what about other people who have found themselves or are currently in a situation where they're experiencing abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, any kind of abuse? What would you say to them?
That's the first thing I would say to them is you have a deep well of joy within you. You have a deep well of joy within you. And I will tell you that you can call upon your deep sense of self, and I use angels. You can use any kind of idea that you like, but you can get guidance and safety by calling on your angels and on your own deep well of joy. So trust yourself to take good care of you and do what is needed. Trust yourself.
Wow. Wow, that makes me want to cry. That is just so profound and so beautiful, Elisa. Thank you. Well, we're going to share your links with our audience, where if people want to get in touch with you, they want to read your book, find out more about the work that you've done, look at some of those beautiful homes, anything, we will share all those links in the show notes and they can find you there. But I want to thank you for your time, for your openness, and for being
Thank you.
so authentic and real. It's been truly a privilege having you on the show. And I wish you all the very best in your future and your future endeavors. And you truly are an inspiration. Thank you. And hope to catch you in the future.
Yes,
Take care.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.